We were asked not to make faces or gestures with our hands, nor were we allowed to repeat their poses. You had to stand straight for the photo. When we arrived, the first thing we noticed was the incredibly white sand. They cleaned it every day, making sure it was smooth and that everything was perfectly neat. It really was a fantastic beach.
When you think of North Korea, you might think of this, but probably not this. It's a new seaside resort that opened in July, but so far the only foreign tourists who've been allowed to visit are a group of Russians. And you might be curious why. Well, that is what we're going to be finding out today. I'm Hannah Gelbart. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service, and I'm speaking to Rachel Lee, a BBC reporter in Seoul in South Korea. Hey, Rachel.
Hello.
So North Korea has opened up this new beach resort, Wonsan Kalma. It's just a few hours drive away from the capital, from Pyongyang. What's it actually like?
So the Wonsan Kalma Resort is on North Korea's east coast and it's in Gangwon-do province. Now, what's interesting is that this is actually a spot for Kim family, and Kim family is basically the three generation who's been ruling the dynasty of North Korea. And they have been using this spot for decades as a private retreat, and the location is fascinating. You've got this sandy beaches looking out over the East Sea, and there are green hills behind it, mountains that link up to the well-known mountain Kumgang area, and the resort complex is huge as well. So over 7,000 rooms spread across these hotels, private seafront villas, and mid-range accommodations. And another thing is there's also a water park with big slides, sports stadiums, theaters, and shopping arcades as well.
And I read that it also used to be a missile testing site too.
It is actually, it is. But what's interesting is that they're trying to change the image of the region and the image of North Korea overall. So this is, they're just trying to say this is that North Korea is not just about missiles or military parades, and we can also be a luxury travel destinations too if you can afford it and play by our rules.
It's so interesting that they want to be a luxury tourist destination because, I mean, North Korea it's so closed and it's so secretive. And for years, hardly any foreign tourists have been allowed in at all. And now the only people who've been able to visit this resort are a small group of Russian tourists. And they went in July. Why is it that only these Russian tourists were allowed in?
I think that is because Pyongyang has kept most foreign tourism closed since the COVID-19 pandemic border shutdown in early 2020, and reopening has been extremely selective. And Russia is one of the few countries with which North Korea's relationship has warmed dramatically in the last couple of years. And some of you might have heard a lot about, their shared opposition to the West and also growing military cooperation between the two. And the Russians who did visit Wonsan, they have arrived on package deals costing around 1,800 US dollars. That's of about 1,340 pounds. And that is more than 1.5 times the average monthly rate wage in Russia. So not exactly a mass market price.
No, but it does really sound like a premium package holiday. And the BBC actually spoke to one of the Russian tourists who went there. This is Anastasia Samsonova.
We woke up and went to breakfast, but those who didn't want to go didn't have to go. And then after breakfast, within 15 minutes, we would get ready and we'd be taken to our beach in electric cars. At lunch, we'd be picked up again, and then we went to the hotel, changed clothes, and we were either taken to another restaurant where we could eat, or we ate in a restaurant at the hotel. And then, again, it was possible to go to the beach. But someone, for example, didn't want to go during the hottest part of the day, so they stayed at the hotel and arrived closer to the evening when the sun had gone down. They came to the beach and there was time to swim, and then they went to dinner. When we arrived, the first thing we noticed was the incredibly white sand. They cleaned it every day, making sure it was smooth and that everything was perfectly neat. The beach lounges were all new. Honestly, everything was new. And the entry into the sea was very gentle. It really was a fantastic beach. A bottle of half-litre beer cost about 60 cents at the beach. Well, the local beer anyways. But there was also Heineken, Japanese beer, and Baltica. The most desired gift for everyone to buy as a souvenir was the North Korean Olympic team uniform. We bought Olympic jackets, hats, and definitely the ones with the flag.
And what about anything that wasn't typical of a beach holiday?
Well, to be honest, we didn't see anything. They didn't launch any missiles whilst we were there. But if you sit on the beach, there are two small islands in front of you, and we felt that we were in a bay. we don't know what happens on those islands. We mentioned, for example, that in Russia, men like to go fishing, and they go out to sea and enjoy going out on yachts. They, the guides, were even willing to take tourists out, but it seems like they didn't allow swimming. They said we could go fishing at sea, but swimming was not possible because of the strong currents. So I don't think there's any forbidden zone that they would keep us away from. That's why I don't believe there's anything classified or hidden from us.
Rachel, we have talked a little bit about missiles already, and as you heard, Anastasia said that she didn't see any while they were there. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this are going to be curious about that too.
Wonsan missile testing site is just, as I said, it's the north of the city of Kalma ballistic missile launch site, and this is often called the Wonsan test facility. Now, it's one of the North Korea's most active missile launch locations, and they've tested short range and medium range missiles here, especially those um, designed to hit targets in South Korea and Japan, reportedly. And Kim Jong un has this personal connection with Wonsan, so he reportedly spent his childhood in this area. And as I said, his private family compound along the coast. And by testing missiles in Wonsan, he's essentially mixing the leisure and luxury image with this hard military power. So it's a subtle way of, saying that this is my home turf and I can show you the beaches or missiles and it's up to you.
And I want to go back to Anastasia's point about classified areas, because she said that when they were there, they were allowed to roam around freely, that she didn't think anything was being hidden from them. And I know it's not common for foreign tourists to be able to visit North Korea, but do you think when they do, they can usually wander around freely, or was this a special case?
I think it's a special case. I mean, she said she could wander freely around the resort, but that may be true, but this is only true for this particular group. But it's most important to stress that how unusual this is. So North Korea is one of the most controlled tourism environment in the world, and normally visitors are assigned government guides who stay with them from arrival to departure, and they choose where they go, who they meet, and even which photographs they can take. And in this case, I think Anastasia's case, the group was almost certainly handpicked and arriving as part of a high-profile opening week with a friendly nation, Russia. And the resort itself is a sealed-off environment built to showcase North Korea's luxury side. And it would have been easy for the authorities to relax the unusual restriction within its perimeter while still keeping guests away from ordinary towns or villages.
And why do you think they relaxed the rules for this group?
It's like a testing group. So as I said, Russia is a very friendly nation to North Korea right now. They're one of the closest allies. And with these, all the military cooperation, and at the same time, Kim Jong Un wants to earn this foreign currency without, without any international sanctions, and tourism is one of the ways. So they're trying to show their luxury aspect of North Korea so that they could earn more money, earn more foreign currency.
As you say, it is a totalitarian state. It's one of the most secretive countries in the world. What is it like for people living in North Korea?
A lot of situations in North Korea is severe. We don't know much about it. As I said, it's a closed society, so there's not much information given to the international world. So we're trying to just guess about how the situation is like. And according to the testimony of some of the North Korean defectors, the situation there is severe. People are starving, some even starving to death, and some people, they're trying to get access to some information about outside world, but it's really hard to get some of the information, get all these information, because the government, the regime is trying to control all the flow of the information coming in North Korea, which is why they don't have access to all the like media or their like communication tools with the outside world.
There is a real contrast, isn't there, between the two sides of North Korea. Let's hear from Anastasia again.
We watched many bloggers before the trip, and some of them really painted quite a frightening picture, saying things like, you can't do anything, you can't take photos, they'll check your phone. But no one checked our phones, neither upon entry nor exit from the country, and we weren't asked to delete anything. The only thing our guides mentioned was that when we were taking photos with the bronze statues of the leaders in Pyongyang, we were asked not to make faces or gestures with our hands, nor were we allowed to repeat their poses. You had to stand straight for the photo. The only other recommendation was that we shouldn't take photos of construction sites or people working on them.
And the resort has actually been criticised by human rights groups for the way that it treated workers on the construction sites. And I'm guessing that's why they weren't allowed to take photos of them.
True. So the Wonsan Kama project has been actually dogged by allegations from human rights groups that much of the construction was carried out under forced labor conditions, meaning that workers, including soldiers and possibly even school students, were made to work long hours or with little pay or even no pay, sometimes in unsafe conditions. And this would fit a wider pattern in North Korea, demanding near constant work, regardless of weather or safety. And in a country where objection is dangerous, refusing these kind of assignments isn't really an option for them.
What has North Korea said about these allegations?
Well, North Korea hasn't really responded about these allegations yet, but what analysts are saying is that this is this is why if North Korea did open its doors more widely, there would be controversy about whether visiting such places are propping up an abusive system. And as I mentioned earlier, that North Korea, I'm pretty sure they are much concerned about this, and which is why they haven't made any comments about this humanitarian issue.
So for now, only this group of Russians has been able to visit. Are there any signs that this resort is going to open up to tourists from other nationalities in the future, especially if he really wants that foreign currency?
Well, we might have to see because the North Korean regime is trying to promote this Wonsan Kalma resort. And this just shows that they know that this is going to gain a lot of attention in the global society, which means that they're trying to attract a lot of foreign tourists around the world. And what's interesting is that North Korea, the tension between the North and the South is getting eased right now. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but what I'm sure is that the North Korean regime is trying to seek for more tourists in their resorts, and that might include South Korean tourists as well, as the tensions are easing.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do like, share, subscribe. If you know anyone who you think might enjoy listening to us, let them know about us. And if you've got ideas for things that you think we should be looking into, you can drop us a line in the comments. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service. I'm Hannah Gelbart, and we'll see you next time.